Hello, I'm Krista West of Avlea Folk Embroidery, and this is the May FlossTube. I missed April. I was really busy in April, but here I am, and I'm so glad you're here because we are going to spend this time talking about folk embroidery. I have so much fun stuff to show you. That's what comes from skipping a month of FlossTubes, is I have loads to share. If you're new here, I'm Krista West. I'm the owner and designer of Avlea Folk Embroidery. And my mission in life is to share folk embroidery with the world. I would really like to see a world in which people are stitching at the bus station and stitching in cafes and stitching on planes and stitching everywhere. So I love to study and research old folk textiles and reimagine these designs in formats that are a little better for modern makers. Usually like a little smaller, or maybe changing up the color palettes or things like that. And that's what I love to do. So if you are interested in seeing all my stuff, you can find everything at the avleafolkembroidery.com website. It'll be in the notes below. You can also follow along on Instagram, and I'll put my handle in below because I didn't know when I didn't even have an Instagram account. I wasn't even on social media until I was 48 years old. So I had no idea that it was like important to use the name of Avlea in the Instagram handle. So it's just under my name. So, and thankfully, I've been so busy designing folk embroidery, I haven't had time to change it or even figure out how to change it. So here we are. Today, what I want to do, I want to share some of the new releases. I want to share sneak peeks of what's coming up and some things that I've repackaged. And then the big finale, I just got back from the H&H Americas show. Mind blown. So I can't wait to share with you about that. What is H&H for everyone who's wondering? H&H is the largest wholesale to the trade craft industry convention and show in all of North America. And it happens once a year. It's been going on. This was the 4th year in the US. I went it would have been 2021 and 2022. 2022, 2023. I missed last year and I went this year, and wow, the growth, the energy, just all the crafting. Oh my word, it's like crafting Disneyland. It was so much fun. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's jump in, and I'm actually going to be drinking my coffee because it's one of those mornings. I didn't get my coffee yet. So I'm going to be having my coffee as we sit here and chat about folk embroidery. I kind of lately, normally I'm a very hardcore tea person. I need to have my tea first thing in the morning. But lately, I don't know, I've been in this like mood for coffee. So I've been having my little mid-morning coffee, and I really like it. So let's see, what's new? Where am I coming to you from? I'm coming to you from the Avlea studio in lovely little Sisters, Oregon. I moved last year from Salem, Oregon to Sisters, Oregon, and it was a big change up for my studio. As you can see behind me, I painted my studio, and I love it. The walls were just like boring beige, and I'm pretty certain you guys can figure out that I just am not a beige girl. And so I painted it this lovely shade from Benjamin Moore that's called Mexican Tile, and it's like kind of like it's like a soft terracotta color. And at first when I did it, I was like, oh my word, what did I just do? But now that I'm living with it, it's definitely like a more intense color, but I love it. It's so warm and inviting. And like when I come in every morning, it's a really happy color. It makes me really happy. So, and folk embroideries just look amazing against it. So I've been taking a bunch of the samples and all the embroideries I've made and like hanging them all around on the walls. I use those little magnetic poster bars, because that way I can take a table runner, and if I want to hang it on the wall for a little bit, I can hang it on the wall. So let's talk about new releases. Okay, with May, wow, you guys love the new May release, and I am so glad you did. This is the new Kolimbari Diamonds table runner. It's on 26 count traditional ground cloth. And it features the new fringe finish. This is a classic finish for Greek embroideries. You'll see a lot of embroideries, a lot of folk textiles in Greece that are finished with a fringe finish. And I had been trying to like teach myself how to do it, and I knew I was missing like a critical step. And sure enough, it was like this little simple thing. I went to Greece. I was in Greece last fall, and I spent time studying with my embroidery tutor. And it turns out I was just missing the stabilization stitch that keeps the fringe from like ripping out like all the way into your embroidery. You need to like stop it and like secure those threads so the fringe only comes out so far and doesn't go any farther. And it turns out what it was just the simple drawn thread hem stitch, but no fussy miter corners, no complicated pressing, no nothing, just super easy. So this is great. Wow. You guys love this kit. And I am so excited because, you know, I was a little nervous that y'all wouldn't like something so geometric and with this very almost, it's got a very historical feel. And of course, it's funny. My husband keeps calling these the little Poseidon tridents. It has this very like Greek myths kind of feel to it. And I love that. And it has a really unique color palette. I did a blog post on it. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned that. I just released a blog post a few days ago. I did the entire blog post like from my phone while I was at H&H. So I was actually on the train to H&H and did the blog post. So if there's any typos or weirdness, like just let me know. But I wanted to sort of introduce everyone to the folk embroidery of Crete because there are kind of two major big styles of folk embroidery in Crete. And one is like the weaving and the table runners and the cushion covers and the curtains that are done in these kind of beautiful, like very intricate diamond, interlocking diamond shapes with like these beautiful little elements coming out of it. So it's got this lovely feel of having both kind of a massed heavy stitch section, but then this light gracefulness that comes out of it. I don't know. For me, this is pretty close to folk embroidery perfection. But the other kind of embroidery, the one that I was most familiar with to begin with, were the Cretan embroidered skirts. And that's part of the historic folk costume from like the 16 and 1700s. There are many very famous ones. They feature like mermaids and vining figures, and they feature the Cretan stitch, which is a type of surface embroidery stitch that is used to create almost like these thick bands. It's a beautiful stitch. I use it in one of my embroidery hoop kits. I think it's Aegean Sunrise. I think that's the one that I use the closed Cretan stitch in. And actually, Avlea Folk Embroidery, I'm happy to report, is the sponsor of the closed Cretan stitch in the Royal School of Needlework Stitch Bank project. If you like surface embroidery and have not yet looked at that resource, it is amazing. So the Royal School of Needlework for the last several years has been amassing this encyclopedia of all the stitches, like embroidery stitches, like known to humanity. It's an incredible, impressive project. And they get different sponsors for different stitches. And we got the closed Cretan stitch, which I was pretty excited about. But every entry in the stitch bank has like a video of how to work the stitch and examples of it and historic examples. I mean, if you love embroidery, it is just a joy to go through that thing. So really fun, and it's a great place to learn. So, you know, I need to do a blog post on that. That's a great idea. I need to do a blog post on that. So I will. Anyways, I'll put that on the list. So, Kolimbari diamonds. And this one actually is really surprising. This is not that big of a stitch. I think it's a little over that 7,000 stitches, which is basically like 2 bit kits. So if you've been wanting to kind of try and tackle like a bigger table runner, I would say this is probably a really great choice because it's about half to a third the number of stitches in some of the bigger, more complicated table runners like Aegean Arbor or Iris's Paint Box or something like that. And I'm actually finding it really useful around the workshop. Like I'm just moving it from like table to table and I love it. And I've got a plant on it and a little dish of Jordan almonds if I'm really honest. And anyways, it's a really great design. But what I wanted to release with this was something that you could try out the fringe finish before you moved on to a larger piece. So I designed the little baskets design. So cute. I just love this. This was a really neat design. So last, like September, October, I was doing here, and I'll show it to you this way, and then I'll show it to you this way. It's just so cute. I was doing a book signing, at Acorns and Threads in Portland, Oregon. And a woman came up to me and she was like, oh, well, I follow you. And she said, here, she goes, I have something for you. And she hands me this box. And inside the box is a piece of hand woven traditional ground cloth. I knew it immediately because it has a very distinctive look and it's really hard to find. It's like you have to know somebody to get your hands on any of the like old-fashioned hand woven stuff. Most of it is the modern reproduction, which is great, but the hand woven is really amazing. And she gave it to me. She says, well, I took a folk embroidery class like in the 1980s and this was the project and I never finished it. And basically she said, I think you should like release this as a design so that people can like see this design. And so I adapted it into little baskets. The original design was a little bigger. So you could take this design and you could get a fat quarter of traditional ground cloth and you could work more repeats because this is like an easy to repeat design. But I really wanted to have a little table runner that had kind of that Greek island kind of boho feel, but that was super achievable for a beginner cross stitcher, but also like a quick fun project for people who are more experienced and would let you try out the fringe. So let me get close so you can see that. But that's the little fringe finish. It's just so cute. On this one, it's just the threads are removed and it's just like leaves the fringe. So that's what it looks like just plain. On the Kolimbari diamonds, I went ahead and did the little knot work. And I want to play around with this even more and do one that has even bigger fringes, which I think would be so cool. So you can do like almost kind of a macrame effect of like knotting them back and forth, which I think would be really neat. So I'd like to do that next. So I was thrilled that we have like a new finishing technique. And so that's on the how-to page and it's on my YouTube channel. Well, clearly you found me. Here we are on YouTube. And anyways, it's a really, really great technique and it's a great way to finish your embroideries if you don't want to do the drawn thread hem. And I think a lot of it just depends on like what's the overall effect you're going for. And if you really like that kind of boho, vintagey, folk textile look, a fringe finish is really great. I love the drawn thread hemming. That has a very heirloom, very like almost professional finish quality, but I like having both in my toolkit now. So that's the ones that just released. And then in addition to those, it's kind of like it's almost like it's not really a re-release, but I basically just finally got packaging put together for the work bags. The work bags. Okay, so what are the work bags? So the work bags it's a muslin bag printed with an embroidery design from one of my embroidery hoop kits. This is Mira Medallion, and this is Thessaly Floral. These have a really funny origin story. So it must have been about like 4 years ago or so. I can't remember. No, I think it was like even before COVID. And my daughter was having a little birthday party, and I was looking for like a quick and easy party craft. So I went downstairs and I had the stamps for the embroidery hoop kits and I had some muslin bags and I stamped them. And I thought, oh, that looks really cool. And so I put the stamped designs on the website thinking, what a cool project bag. And I had a few of them left over from the party. I put them on the website. Next thing I know, people are emailing me like, well, how exactly do you stitch that? And I was like, oh, it didn't occur to me that anybody would want to stitch it. And then it was like, that's actually really a great idea. And so people started stitching it. So then I was like, okay, well, let me throw in the floss. So like people can throw it in. So I had just envisioned it as sort of being like a first toolkit for new stitchers because the work bag comes with the bag and now it comes with the hoop and a needle minder and a needle and floss and instructions. And you can't really see it right here, but it also comes with a set of floss organizers. I kind of wanted it to be like something that somebody could have that they could start out embroidering and then they would have their first project be the bag that they could like put all their other projects in. So people started stitching them and then I was like, I got to get in on this too. And so I stitched the samples. I actually didn't even get around to stitching the samples to a few months ago. And as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's so much fun because it's a really quick project, but like what a beautiful bag. And so anyways, they've been kind of popular, especially among some of the shops that sell Avlea kits. And so all the shops are like, can you please give us better packaging? So I was like, okay, now we have better packaging. Now it looks a little bit more professional. So that one has a very funny backstory. And I've been thinking, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, but I have been thinking about taking some of the other designs and printing them on stick and stitch paper. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's basically, let me grab one. Hang on, I've got one right here. Here we go. It's basically this really cool transfer paper, and you print the design on the stick and stitch paper, and then you cut out around the design. You peel it. This is like adhesive. You peel it off, and then you stick it to whatever you want to embroider. You embroider away, and then when you're done, you rinse it under warm water, and it all like dissolves. Like, have you guys ever seen those? Like, have you ever gotten an order of something and it's filled with those like popcorn peanutty things that are made out of cornstarch, and you put those underwater and it dissolves? Same idea. That's how this kind of like works. It's a really cool idea, and I've been thinking about doing more with stick and stitch paper because it would allow me to offer you more designs. Because when we do something like print bags or print the fabric for a new hoop kit design, that is a pretty significant financial investment. It's a minimum of 100 yards that I have to print with that design, or a minimum of like 1,000 bags I have to print. And so because of that, I'm trying to find ways that are lower cost. I don't have to but would give you more options. So I've been thinking about adding stick and stitch for the embroidery hoop kits, and so that they can be used on bags or like whatever project you want. You could put them on quilts, you could put them on clothing, bags, like whatever you can think of. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that, because a lot of other embroidery designers are using stick and stitch. I just, because cross stitch is sort of like my great big thing, and I don't do tons with surface embroidery, I haven't really thought about it. But I saw a lot of it at the H&H show, and I was like, oh, maybe we should do some stuff like that. I also really like the part of it where you can use something you already have. And I was even thinking about maybe doing like a small kit, like a little stick and stitch kit where it'd have a bunch of little Byzantine motifs, like the needle minder motifs. I thought that could be fun. You could put them on handkerchiefs, or you could put them on scarves, or I don't know, whatever you want to put them on. I think we're going to be definitely heading into a time, we already really are there, where people want to personalize and make their own clothing and their things unique. And not everybody wants stuff to look exactly the same as everybody else, which I applaud. I think it's wonderful. And I think that stick and stitch might be a way that I could share some Avlea designs that way. So let me know your thoughts on that. I'm kind of curious to get everybody's input on stick and stitch. If I should like go that route, we could always do like a test run of a few designs. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. You can just drop it in the comments and like let me know. Okay. Ooh, it's time for sneak peeks. Okay. I have a sneak peek to share with you. One, you're going to be excited about. Because it's a re-release of a design many, many, many of you liked, and I had to restitch the samples. And then second, I just can't. I really should just like stop talking and show it to you. Okay, this is cool. So a while ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I did the Aegean Ornaments kits, and they were 4 designs, and they came in a red colorway, let me put that there, and a blue colorway. And they were stitched on 30 count Micanee, and each one was designed for you to finish as like a coaster or an ornament or a pincushion or a patch or whatever you wanted to finish it as. And the kit comes with the fabric, for the lining fabric for you to use for the back if you need it. And the original kits came with buckram. Buckram, I've just given up on buckram. It's really challenging to use. I used it as a professional tailor. It is not for the faint of heart. And I've just decided not to saddle you all with that again. And then the second thing that I really needed to retool on this kit was that the original kits were stitched with Baltic Fibers sole wool cobweb lace weight yarn. That is a mouthful. And that has been discontinued. It was really cool because it's kind of fun to stitch with lace weight yarn instead of like embroidery floss, and it had a cool effect, but it got discontinued and it was really challenging to wind. And so I was like, I don't want to give up on these designs. So I thought, well, let's just go back to our regular old favorite DMC. So I had Celeste stitched up a couple of new samples. Celeste is one of our lovely, amazing sample stitchers. Oh, a word for my sample stitchers. I do about 80% of the stitching myself, but that last 20% is like what really helps get things like this, like re-released, or have extra colors done, or just different projects like that, things that I'm not certain what they're gonna be like. I usually will like share with a sample stitcher so I can like get a sense of it before I delve into like finishing or really like bringing it all the way to the website. So, but these designs were really popular. You guys loved this kit. And I mean, it's so cool. It's a great kit because it has like 3 motifs in it, and then it has an all over design. And I'm going to get a little closer. And again, you can see we haven't even finished it yet. This is just the sample. I'm going to be finishing this actually today. And I'm going to do a little video on how to finish it as like a little pincushion / ornament. Super simple. I like really simple finishings. Yeah, like that's a surprise for y'all. But I'm not really drawn to like rickrack and pom-poms and fussy finishings like that. Partly because I was trained as an old school tailor, and those things are like hard to work with, and they also require a lot of glue and things like that. And honestly, I don't even really know how to use a glue gun because I just learned to sew everything, either by a machine or by hand. And so I'm going to actually do these as really cute little padded pincushions, but that you could easily add a loop, and I'll show how in the video, and use them as an ornament. And these were really, it was funny. Most kits that I offer in like a red version and a blue version, there's a clear winner. Like the blue version will be the most popular, or the red version might be the most popular. But this one was totally even. And I thought it was so interesting because some of you really love the blue and white look. And then others of you, I think, were using the red and the green for more of like kind of a Christmassy or holiday feel, which is cool too. So I will be finishing those up and getting those re-released. They'll probably be on the website. I'm looking at my new design board because I finally have a design board with like months and a calendar. Imagine that. It's one of the things I was able to build in my new studio that I have long needed. If it ever seems like I'm a little hit and miss in how I design things, it's because I didn't have a great big calendar on the wall, and I really needed that. So I have that, and I think this is going to release. I'm going to release this in August because I was thinking, oh, wouldn't that be perfect to like start stitching these for like holiday? Okay, that's that. Okay, what else? Oh, okay, the one I'm so excited about. Okay, people. Every once in a while, I work on a design or a project, and I think, oh, that's a really cool design. I love it as the chart. But I don't know, I just, for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to really come across as well when it's stitched. And I absolutely love when I am completely proven wrong. And here's where I am completely proven wrong. I got this sample in yesterday from also Celeste, and I took it out of the envelope, and I literally was like running around the workshop whooping. My husband was here helping me with something, and he's like, what is going on? I'm like, this design, it's so amazing. You ready? Okay, so a while ago, I'm going to make you wait even longer. So a while ago I did, okay, wait, now I have to show you. Ta-da! Isn't this gorgeous? Okay, so a while ago I did, back in January, I did, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. Oh, I just love it so much. I did a partnership, a collaboration with Folkwear Sewing Patterns. Now, I am a huge fangirl of Folkwear. When I was 19 years old, I sewed their garden party dress for a, wait for it, croquet costume party I went to. It was a croquet tournament that you had to show up in costume. And this is how much of a nerd I am. And so I spent like 2 months sewing a Edwardian garden party dress with my Folkwear sewing pattern and getting it all right. And I used cotton voile. And of course I researched all the fabrics, and it was like one of the like crowning achievements of my like garment sewing for myself. And I love that dress. I still have it somewhere. I haven't found it yet. I know it's in a box somewhere. I just haven't found it. Through the move, I'm sure it's somewhere. And so about a year and a half ago, I met Molly, who's the current owner of Folkwear. Now, for those of you who've never heard of Folkwear, this is like Folkwear is a legend in the sewing community. And they were started in like 50 years ago in the 70s by 3 gals who were hippies. and they wanted to have a sewing pattern company that did folk costume and historical dress. And so they researched and like designed patterns for things like a traditional Japanese kimono. They have a Romanian blouse. They have a Croatian dress. They have, they have a beautiful, it's a Victorian blouse with like lace insertions. And their patterns are like top notch. The instructions are excellent. The pattern drafting is just really a very high level of pattern drafting. The patterns fit, they work, all the things. And they were in sewing stores. Like, anybody back in the day remember Daisy Kingdom in Portland, Oregon? So they were in sewing stores. And I remember drooling over their patterns, like all through my 20s. And they were amazing. Well, for a number of years now, they've been working on a Norwegian bunad folk costume pattern. And it finally came to press. And Molly reached out, and Molly and I have known each other, and we're in this like mentoring group for like little craft businesses like ours. And Molly came to me and said, she goes, we're doing this Norwegian folk costume. Would you do the charted? There's a part that's done on even weave that's cross stitch. Would you do the charts? And I'm like, did I just get asked by folkwear? I was like floored. I was practically speechless because I was so excited to work with such a wonderful company with such a wonderful long reputation in the American crafting landscape. So I, of course, set about quickly to research Norwegian folk costume, did a deep dive into bunad embroidery work. And it turns out that Norwegian bunad work, it's so funny. As soon as I got into it, I was like, oh, I recognize that from Greek folk costume. Or, oh, I know that 8-pointed star from Latvian work. It's just folk embroidery and folk costume. While they are very distinctive throughout different parts of the world, it is a shared aesthetic collective. And I love that part because I think it really just has a message for how we can come together as human beings. Okay, that got kind of metaphysical really quick, but I just love that folk embroidery can bring us together. And so I started researching it, and I was really taken with this one design I saw that featured these diamonds with these little 8-pointed stars with these little leaves that was in a half drop motif repeat. And I knew that. And then I went and found some other borders because for their design and for their chart, she wanted the big piece like this because it's a chest insertion that goes under this vest. So you have this beautiful piece of folk embroidery like underneath this usually like wool vest. It's very distinctive. Just look up Norwegian folk costume on Google Images. You'll see tons of it. But then sometimes there are white linen shirts that are worn underneath, and they feature designs on the sleeve cuff or on the neck placket. If you're familiar with Romanian blouses or Ukrainian vyshyvankas, the folk costume shirt, it's much the same, where you have that design that goes around the neck placket. So we wanted to put several of those. I wanted to bring those into the design, so I added 3 more of those that each had a different feel. But I thought about changing up the color palette on this, and I was like, no, I don't want to change up the color palette. I really, on this one, wanted to honor the original color palettes, and they are bright like this. And the funny thing is that I have a personal connection to this work because my dad is 2nd generation Norwegian, actually almost 1st gen. But my grandfather was actually born in the States to Norwegian parents who had immigrated, went back to Norway, spent most of his childhood in Norway. More siblings were born, and then all of them immigrated back, and the last and final child was born in the States. So they spent this decade kind of going back and forth between Norway and America, and they ended up in Astoria, Oregon. And so my grandfather is Norwegian, and we didn't really grow up with a lot of the culture, but I was really fascinated by it as a kid. And so when I was 17 years old, I got to go to Norway with my grandfather and my 2 great aunts. And it was funny, when I started working on the Norwegian folk costume design, I realized that trip was fundamental for where I am today. Because on that trip, I saw all the female relatives sitting around after they'd made like a gazillion cups of coffee and all these wonderful pastries. Every single one of them had a basket next to her, and she was knitting in public at a family event, just as people were chatting. And I met a like second cousin twice removed, and she was the same age as I was. And she was basically telling me how she and all of her girlfriends at school, they all like knit sweaters, and they just swapped each other's hand knit sweaters. So like none of them ever wore like the same sweater in a given month, because they had all these hand knit sweaters. And I was so taken with that idea of craft and knitting and all of this being so literally interwoven to daily life. It really sparked my creativity. I had already at this point been sewing and doing things like that, but I came home and a year later I learned to knit and I started designing knitwear. Then I did a tailoring apprenticeship, and it's that trip that really kind of opened the world of what craft could be to me personally. And so anyways, that was a really long backstory, but I thought you'd want to hear all of that about this design. So when Molly and I were talking about the design, she has the charts developed for her sewing pattern, and they're in there, along with what are called rose malling motifs. And those are like the decorative, they almost look like toll painting. They're similar to toll painting, and they have these beautiful flowers on them. Those are also in the pattern because Norwegian folk costume utilizes both cross stitch and surface embroidery, which is really cool, very like unique and hybrid. And so for this, she wanted just the charts for her pattern because people were going to be choosing all different kinds of fabrics, and I wanted to actually release it as a wall hanging kit. Because this way, if someone is doing a Norwegian folk, you can make it as a wall hanging. That's how I'm going to release it. It's actually how I'm going to finish it later on today. Because I can't wait to like set this on I just want to look at this like all day long. And, but I wanted to have a kit. The wall hanging kit does double duty. If someone is making a bunad, a Norwegian folk costume, they can buy the wall hanging kit, and instead of turning it into a wall hanging, this is the type of like machine washable fabric you can put into a folk costume. So it's it's definitely kind of a new project for me, but I was really excited to work on it, and I just was so happy with this sample. I can't wait to like share this with you guys. And this will probably release as a kit as soon as possible because the patterns are already there. They're as a PDF pattern. I released it originally as the Scandinavian Sampler 1 and Scandinavian Sampler 2. This is the 1. 2 is a slightly different design, but another one of these all over designs. And I was thinking this would be like really cool to just, I don't know, you could put it on the wall, or you could put it on like a brass stand and put it on a console table. You could even, you totally could use this at Christmas time, but I intend to use it year round. So anyways, that's the Scandi Sampler. That's going to be a wall hanging later today. I'll try and do like some quick video as I'm doing the wall hanging. I just did the new wall hanging video, the how-to video, but it is kind of fun to see how this stuff goes together in like a little short reel. So let's see what else is coming along. Wow. Okay. Oh, I know the other little sneak peek. So cute. And I just can't wait to share it with you. It's so cute. So this is the newest. This is going to be the newest little cross-stitch hoop kit. This is Santorini Peony, and it is my very first 4-inch hoop kit. So I'm going to show that to you. I've been delighted at how popular my first go at producing cross-stitch hoop kits has been. That has been fantastic. Everybody's loved those. They're a great place to begin. And so I've been messing around with a whole bunch of other, things, and I've got like at least, I don't know, I have probably almost half a dozen more of these like that are on the board. But I just love this one. And it's the same color palette as the Clara's Garden, which was the very first one to release. So that if you were looking to do like kind of a mix and match thing like on a wall, they would coordinate. The colors would coordinate. I'm trying to do that for several of the kits, because I could totally see where you could do one of these and then one of the Clara's Garden and then maybe one more of these and like hang it on like, I don't know, a wall or a little hallway area or something. Last week when I was at H&H, I actually, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was so clever. I'm going to try and like set it up on a wall in the studio and like do a reel or take a picture. But I actually used plant chain, which is like the gold chains that people like hang plants from the ceiling with. You can buy it. It's really inexpensive on Amazon. And then you use drapery hooks, like drapery pins, to hang it to, you can hang the hoops to the gold chain. Cool thing about it is you can move them out or move them around. And I used them at the booth last week, and it was such a simple and easy system, but it looked really cool. So I'll try and do that in the studio pretty soon. So that is Santorini Peony. It's a 4-inch hoop kit. It's basically going to be like the bit kit version of the cross stitch hoop kits. So that's going to be out. I had to figure out how to cram all of the information into the pattern because I wrote like totally beginner instructions for the big ones. And Kristen, my wonderful graphic designer, was like, I don't think this is going to fit. So we had to go back to the drawing board yesterday and be like, okay, how are we going to like make this like all fit? Because you know me. I want you to feel comfortable starting a kit. I want you to feel like you know what you're doing. And that means I have to explain a lot of stuff. So anyways, I'm not just going to like release a kit and just, hope for the best and not show you how to do it if you're brand new to cross stitch. So anyways, Santorini Peony. Okay. Now, another thing that's on the docket. Oh, that was the other thing I meant to tell you guys. Wow. Thank you to everyone who gave me the feedback on doing limited edition kits. That has been fantastic. I asked in an email, maybe a month or two ago about that. And you guys were like, yes, please do limited edition kits, because sometimes I have only a little bit of fabric and I can't like make a kit available for like the next 3 years. I can only like maybe make 20 of them or maybe just 30 of them. And that's like all I have. Usually because it was discontinued, or the mill I use in Greece is a family mill and they do small production runs. So sometimes that, this year I can only get maybe 20 meters or 30 meters of the fabric. And that's like it for, the year. And so I love that you guys love that idea, because I have some really cool fabrics I got from the mill when I was in Greece. But again, they're not producing them right now, so I can't get a consistent supply. So I'm going to release some of those as limited edition, including, I think I showed this to you guys in the last FlossTube, but I showed you the fabric, but I haven't shown you the design. So I'll give you a sneak peek of the design. So in one of the fabrics I was able to get in Greece is this really cool, it's an even weave fabric. So it's kind of like Mikini, a little even lighter and almost a little more sheer, as you can see. But the cool thing about it is it has like machine done drawn thread hemming channels through it. So it's like this whole section that you don't have to stitch anything if you don't want. So I've developed a border design to just go right down the middle. So it should be, if all works out the way I hope it does, it should make a really beautiful table runner that's like really striking and interesting, but not tons and tons of stitching. Because this, hang on, I'll show it to you. This is tiny, but this is the design. I'm going to run down the center of it. This is a design that I've seen in numerous old Greek embroideries that have been shared with me. Most of the time, it's done as an all-over repeating design. And it's great, but it is a lot of stitching to do it as an all-over design. And so I kind of adapted it to be a border. And that border is going to basically be stitched down the middle of this. And then, you'll hem the edges. And then you have this like really cool table runner. That's the idea anyways. We'll see how that works out. But I love the idea of doing limited edition kits, because that way I can release some things that I don't have enough to offer the kit forever. But once the kit has sold out, it will still stay as a PDF pattern on the website. So that'll be cool. Okay, where are we at? Okay, we're on to H&H. Okay, so now I just want to tell you about my week last week. So, grab your coffee, grab your stitching. Oh my word. It was so amazing. And it was kind of all the more amazing because I went in feeling really discouraged. Anybody who's been here with me for a long time, you guys know that like I'm usually pretty peppy, pretty energetic, pretty positive. I try to be, and that is a very conscious decision. I really want to see the beauty in the world. And so I am intentional about that. But sometimes stuff happens and it's just, you just can't put a great spin on it. And it can be discouraging and disheartening. And I had just kind of been through a big period of that because of the whole tariff situation. I, as a small business owner, that just upended so many things for so many of us. I had new needle minders in the works. I had, fortunately my hoops came before all of that happened. And so it was the last couple of months and all of that going on. And I thought it was just me until I talked with all my other friends. Most of us have seen a decided reduction in orders. We're talking like, I think my March and April orders were down almost 30%. And for someone like me, who this is my livelihood, this is how I pay the Trader Joe's bill, it's scary. And it's discouraging, but it's also scary. You suddenly are waking up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? And why am I doing this? And like, why am I following my passion? What if I can't pay for the Trader Joe's bill because I'm following my passion? So it's been a pretty stressful few months. And I was feeling pretty discouraged going into H&H because I didn't go last year. I went the previous year. And I didn't really know a lot about packaging that I should have. I didn't know enough about packaging. I didn't know enough about booth design. I was a total newbie and I didn't nail it, if I'm really honest. My booth design was kind of meh. My packaging was glassine envelopes, which while they are great and eco-friendly, shops hate them. So I literally had shop after shop after shop literally take one look at my samples and then look at my packaging and walk away. So in the meantime, I've been really trying to work on things like that to make sure that the kits are as beautiful and as beautifully presented as possible. So again, for me, it's all with the goal of sharing folk embroidery and paying the Trader Joe's bill. So those are sort of my dual goals in life. And so I went in feeling really discouraged. I called my husband the night before and you go in and it's this huge convention center in Chicago. And there are all of these, you name a craft household name and they're there. So, if you think of any fabric company, sewing machine company, Janome, all the things, they're all there with their super swanky, gorgeous booth displays. And they can afford like $10,000 worth of booth space. So they take over like whole aisles and they have these like gorgeous graphics and everything's gorgeous. And there I am in my little tiny booth. It's like the smallest booth you can rent. But this time I got smart and I changed up the curtains. Normally these booths come with these black curtains and the lighting in there is terrible. And so friends told me, take your own lights. And then I was like, wait, I need to do something that really expresses like folk embroidery. And I was like, what's the thing? If you could do one thing, how would you express it? And I was like, warmth. Warmth, really. I love the warmth of folk embroidery. The softness of the fabrics, the warmth of the colors, like how it makes me feel like warm and happy, So I bought curtains that were basically the same color as the walls you see behind me, that kind of soft terracotta color. And I put them all up. And then I just took all of the embroideries and I just pinned them up. I just pinned them to the curtains. It was like this palooza of folk embroidery. And I was like, it wasn't glitzy and it wasn't graphically designed, but boy, was it a lot of gorgeous embroidery. And so the night before I got it up and I was like, okay, but it definitely has a little bit, my booth has a much more sort of handmade, dare I say homemade feel. And it's not glitzy and it's not like, been professionally designed or anything, but I was pretty happy with it. But I went back and I told my husband, I said, okay, I think this is just my last year. Like, I just don't know that I'm cut out for this. I think I'm just not fancy enough for this world. And he was like, well, just stick at it. Just, go it, just make the best of it. And I was like, okay, great. So I just went the next day and thought, you know what? I'm just going to like let all this go. I'm going to let this go. And if this doesn't work out, it's going to be okay. And why is it in life that when we do that? And me especially, I should know this one by now. I should definitely know this lesson. I had a baby at 40 after waiting 10 years to have another child and finally giving up. So, I should know this lesson. But there I was, and I just like let everything go. And I was like, whatever happens, happens. And then wouldn't you know, for 3 straight days, I had people at my booth constantly, people asking what it was, asking about cross stitch, asking about folk embroidery, and wanting to like have it in their stores. And when I say their stores, I mean like knitting stores and fabric stores and quilting stores, because in so many towns and cities across the US, there aren't really many needlework, like just needlework only kind of stores left. And so what's happening is as those stores close, people are still wanting to cross stitch and embroider, and they go to their local yarn store and they say, well, would you consider carrying some cross stitch kits? Or would you consider carrying some embroidery kits? Or they go into the local quilt store. Or the quilt store is like, hey, I knew the needlework store owner, but she retired and she asked me to like stock some stuff for her customers. And so this is what's happening all across America. And I personally think it's like amazing. Not that needlework stores are closing down. That is actually quite sad. But what I think is really incredible in this moment is that all of these people in the crafting world are coming together as a community to basically save crafting. That just sounds so hyperbole, but it's true. I talked with a woman who owns a Janome sewing machine store. She owns a sewing machine store. Everything she does is by machine. She teaches sewing machine classes, how to sew with machines, how to do garment construction. And she was like, oh, I have to have your cross stitch kits because I have all these people coming in. And she said they want something to do that's by hand. And she said, we're not ready for them. And she said, I don't like turning them away. And so now in her sewing machine store in Tennessee, where she has only really had people who use sewing machines, now she's creating community around people who do handwork and people who embroider and people who knit and people who sew. And this is the part that I just get goosebumps about, because this is so good for all of us. Because when this sort of crafting becomes the norm and people are like, of course I'm going to go into my local, yarn store and be able to pick up embroidery supplies. This is fantastic. It's good for everyone if we basically cross-pollinate our crafting. In fact, it was really funny. I saw several people walking around with little tags on that said multi-craftual. And I just loved that. I was like, because I've done knitting and I've done professional tailoring and I know my way around a sewing machine. But like for me, my preferred crafting method is cross stitch. Doesn't mean am I going to make myself a Norwegian bunad costume probably this year? Yeah, I probably am. But most of the time I'm going to be cross stitching. But I love this idea, this energy that we are sharing crafting and we're trying to make this world bigger. It just made me so excited. I probably talked with half a dozen sewing machine companies that are now bringing in handcrafts into their stores, which have been traditionally just machines. So I think that's really exciting. I also spoke with a number of I'm thinking at least 4 shop owners who have specific demographics. Let's just call a spade a spade. These are the hip stores, okay? This is where the young people go to craft. And they're in hip places and they have, hip spaces and all this kind of stuff. They are very, up to the minute. And interestingly enough, they loved folk embroidery because it's useful. And they said that's what their younger crafters are wanting. So we're seeing this full circle thing. So don't let anybody tell you that crafting is dead, because I am here to tell you 100%. I just spent a week with 5,000 people who are into crafting and who each of them have some sort of crafting community. So 5,000 times that many communities, that many shops, that many exhibitors, that many connections. It's amazing. And crafting is absolutely not dead. In fact, it is rising like a phoenix. It's amazing. And so that was so encouraging to me. So I actually came home and I felt grateful, because I feel like I had been through this season from about January through April where things were really discouraging and really hard and really made me questioning why I was doing this. And I went and saw firsthand why I was doing this. And it reminded me, I'm doing this for community. I'm doing this to keep these crafts alive. I'm doing this to share this with you so that you can go and share it with somebody else. And we keep these things alive because we love this. We love our crafting. And so it really got me thinking more about community in crafting. And I want to be doing more with that. I would love to set up a private, if I have this right, please don't laugh at me, a private Facebook group. I think that's one where you have to have entry. So if anybody knows how to do that, please let me know, because I have no idea. And but I'm just going to keep asking until we get this set up, because we had the forum at the old Avlea website. I'm researching new options for the forum, and I want to really have that sense of community for not just Avlea stitchers, but just with everyone. And so I'm going to probably start doing a little bit more teaching and things like that, because I want to go to the party. I want to be part of the crafting party, because these are really cool people. oh my gosh, you guys would have loved it. The number of super cool outfits I saw. Wow. I saw people in these like amazing knit shawls and amazing handcrafted like garments that they had sewn and like these upcycled thrifted. Oh, it was just incredible. So it was a really, really fun week, and it really helped me kind of like rediscover my purpose in doing this. I mean, of course, obviously to embroider and share that with you, but there does come a point when you're doing this as a business that you have to make all sorts of decisions if you're going to keep your business running so that you can keep doing the work you love. And so I felt like this week was a real shot in the arm for me. And a couple of things I came away with on as a small business, because I'm there exhibiting, but I'm also like, I go around in the morning and I walk around and find all the different like suppliers that we might want to use for things for Avlea. And one of the things I was thrilled to find was Aurifil thread. So I don't know, a gazillion years ago, I got this spool of Aurifil thread for hand quilting. And I don't even remember where I bought it, but it is my favorite thread for working drawn thread hemming. And I'd seen the thing on the bottom, and I was like, I don't even know where you get this stuff. And for a long time now, I've really wanted to have a hand sewing thread on the Fabric and Notions page for drawn thread hemming. Okay, so anyways, and this is the one that I love. Well, the Aurifil people were there. And so I got to talk to them, and I got my whole little box of samples, yay me, and I found out that they do this. The biggest thing with this is that this thread is not going to be that cheap because it comes on, I think it's 1,300 meters on this little cone. I've been working on mine for like years. I've probably had this. I might have even had this for like 20 years. Maybe, it might be that long. And so I'm going to start getting, I'm going to order some of this and get it stocked on the website so that if you want a really great thread for finishing things, for hand-drawn thread, for the fringe finish, drawn thread hemming, the fringe finish, things like that, this is the one that I keep in my work bag. And so I figured you guys would probably want to have that too. It's an Italian thread, really high quality. It's Egyptian cotton. And I did try out their embroidery floss, which is by some people considered to be a superior product to DMC. I stitched with it last night, and I'm not as fond of it as DMC. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. I'm sure it's beautiful. It has a little bit of this, like, it's hard to describe, but a little bit of a dry quality to it. It's a little dry, and I don't feel like it is quite as silky as the DMC. Because I did that, and then I went right back to stitching with my DMC, and I was like, yeah, I still am a DMC girl. So, but if there are other flosses that you guys want me to test out and test drive, I've been thinking I could do a blog post on that. And I'm not opposed to like doing maybe say heirloom like series of kits that have like a different floss. The biggest thing is with most of the higher, like the flosses that are considered higher quality than DMC, many of them are not color fast. And so that doesn't work for folk embroidery because we have to be able to wash stuff. So if you've used an embroidery floss that you really like, that is color fast, and you want me to consider it, like, let me know, because it's something I'm definitely open to. I'm still like a huge fan of DMC because I've been stitching with it for, 2 decades. I love it. But I am always interested in like hearing from you guys, like what you guys like. So we can do that. So Aurifil will be on the website. The 4-inch hoops came in. And so now there's the 6-inch hoop that I've had for a long time, and now the 4-inch hoop. And the 4-inch hoop means that now the small work bag, the little work bag kit, has a 4-inch hoop. So everyone who's emailed me and said like, well, it's really hard to fit the 6-inch hoop in the little tiny bag, it's like, okay, here's the 4-inch hoop now. It'll be easier to stitch. So, wow. That was a lot, right? I skip a month, and then here we are for a really long period of time. So that's what I had to share with you today. That was like kind of a chock-a-block full FlossTube. As always, I want to thank you guys for being here. Without your support, without your enthusiasm for folk embroidery, we would not be keeping these designs alive. I mean, people ask me, like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of a one-woman show. But I'm not really a one-woman show. I'm a, like, 1,000-woman show or 10,000-woman show, or 10,000, I should say, stitcher show, because you guys are stitching these. you guys are reviving these designs. I mean, I can create designs and stitch them all I want, but I have one house. And like, as much as I would, like pretty much cover the walls in embroidery, that's just not that much scope. What we need to do as crafters and as stitchers to keep folk embroidery alive is to just keep stitching it and sharing it. And that is entirely you guys' achievement. So I just want to thank you again. I feel honored and blessed and privileged to do this work. I love this work and I love sharing it with you. And I love when you share it with me. So let's go stitch. Let's go create some community and some great table runners. So thanks for joining me. All the stuff is in the notes. And if you have any comments, don't hesitate to drop me a line in the little messages below, or you can email me. You can just go to the Avlea website and email me. I read all my emails. So thank you again so much for joining me. Happy stitching.